Hello and welcome to Pickleball Therapy, the podcast dedicated to your pickleball improvement. It's the podcast that focuses on your mind. My name is Tony Roig. I am the host of this weekly podcast. It is a pleasure to be with you this week. I'm excited about the subject of this week. I was reminded of it on a video that came across my personal feed, my algorithm, the stuff that I get to see because I enjoy that kind of stuff. And it reminded me of a really important concept, which has to do with gatekeeping our cells, gatekeeping our information. Specifically, this creator was talking about gatekeeping information and taking back your attention. And the content creators in the science space, a gentleman named Hank Green, who's really interesting concepts about science, shares a lot of just knowledge about science, and I've followed him for a number of years now. And this one caught my attention because he was talking about the algorithm and how it basically dictates for you what it kind of be like. It replaces your agency over time. In other words, like the algorithm knows you better than you know yourself. I mean, we make jokes about it, but that's the world we're heading into. I mean, like Amazon, for instance, supposedly knows more about what you want than what you think you want. So his idea was to retake your attention, and he used the term intentionality. And if you listen to this podcast, you know that's a subject that's near and dear to our hearts in the better pickleball ecosystem, of which pickleball therapy is a part. And so that caught my attention as well. So I'm going to talk about intentionality in a minute, but let's go through a little bit of this idea of gatekeeping and how we can use that to best enjoy our journey together. And then in the riff, I'm going to share with you an event that's coming up that we're going to talk about information about 2025 that'll help you out. All right, let's talk first about gatekeeping our information, gatekeeping our what comes into our brains. Because, a lot of times, when we're exposed to information in an area that maybe we're not sure what the right answer is, like pickleball can be sometimes, we will err on the side of letting the information in. So we'll allow the information to come in. Sometimes it's because we're just curious. Sometimes it's because, we just heard it. Sometimes it's because we hear it, but we're not really sure how to exclude it, right? How to discern that it's not necessarily correct, complete, or for us. Those are the three elements that we look at in terms of information. And there's a couple of different areas that I think is important to keep an eye out for. One is YouTube, or any kind of social media algorithm. YouTube is still the principal one in our space in pickleball. Eventually, it may switch to Instagram or TikTok or something else, but right now it's YouTube. So it's not that YouTube's doing anything wrong, but YouTube doesn't know you specifically. YouTube knows that you like pickleball, and YouTube knows that you interact with videos that are about pickleball. The other thing it knows that the crowd likes the video. So, for instance, a common video that is very popular is serves. We don't do a lot of serve videos in our channels because not that serves aren't important, but we subscribe to a very fundamentally sound way of dealing with the serve. So we're not going to try and take you in these directions of doing all these fancy serves and things like that. So we don't have that heavy presence in the serve space. Other content creators do. And this is not a criticism of them. They're doing what, everybody's playing the same game. So they're all on the same hamster wheel, if you will. You have YouTube feeding videos that the crowd likes. The crowd likes serve. So YouTube feeds serve. That means content creator gets feedback that serve is good. So content creator creates content based on serve, and so on and so forth. Just the wheel keeps going round and round. So what happens is it's this self-reinforcing system, right? And it can take our eye off the ball, if you will, pun intended, I guess. It can take away our ability to keep ourselves focused on what really matters in our play, what's going to actually help us with our pickleball, as opposed to these these areas where we're basically pulled off in directions that aren't necessarily going to be the best for our game. The content creator that I mentioned earlier, Hank Green, he was referring to the idea of getting back your attention in terms of just general content delivery, right? General information. Specific to what we're working on here in terms of pickleball, it's taking back your attention from the algorithms in the pickleball space, or being at least cognizant of the fact that because a video was fed into your ecosystem by the algorithm does not mean that that is something that is made for you, does not mean that it is something that is right for you, and doesn't mean that something you should go pursue. And so algorithm is a really big one because of the information age that we live in nowadays. So you just got to be cognizant of that. And I haven't done a lot in AI yet, but I have been playing around with it a little bit in Gemini and ChatGPT, and now there's DeepSeek. So just trying to like see what's possible, right? See if it can help us, figure out ways to reach players, things like that. Just get ideas. And I got to tell you something. I am not impressed by AI so far. I tested it with several different things and just try to get information from it, and it is wrong at a level that is surprising to me. I asked it, some specific pickleball questions, and the answers were just way wrong. And then when I asked AI about the answers being wrong, they would just say like, "Oh, I'm sorry about that," and then I would correct it, and it would be like, "Oh, okay." So it would just take my answer, which in this case is fine because I'm giving it good information, but who knows, right? What's going in there. So, you just have to be really cognizant you have to be careful, I should say, of the information coming your way from any kind of a computer platform, whether it's YouTube or any other social media or even AI in terms of that. Another area that you can use this idea of gatekeeping is friends at the courts, because your friends at the courts, I'm sure they mean well, right? The other players, they're not trying to lead you astray, but I hear a lot of information out there when I'm out on the courts, and a lot of it's just wrong. But they'll swear by it. They'll swear that that's the way you do it. And ask yourself, like, how do they know the right way to do it? Even if let's assume that they're like playing on a court higher than your court, right? So they're higher level in that facility. They probably don't really understand the game that well. So, that's just the reality of the situation. I shouldn't say they don't understand the game well, but that's just, you got to play the odds, right? The odds are that they haven't spent the time really breaking everything down the way that, for instance, CJ and I do at Better Pickleball, where we spend, literally every day of every week doing this. And so that's what allows us to then share with you information that we know is good information. And again, I don't want to make it sound like I'm down talking, the local players. What I want to do is help you protect yourself from potentially bad information, because bad information then leads you astray, right? And that's the danger. If it was like, like, what song do you like best, or what movie is the best, or whatever, whatever, that's no big deal. That's not going to impact you. But if you hear something at your courts, or get a YouTube video that feeds you some information that is either incorrect or incorrectly stated or misunderstood or partially understood but not in context and things like that, it can really mess up your game. And one example I'll give you is this happened several years ago. There was a player who did a video, and he referred to the neutral dink as a dumb dink. I know that sometimes referred to as the dead dink, but he referred to it as the dumb dink. So he basically layered another next level on dead dink to dumb dink. And so, you're sitting there, you being like your, average pickleball player sitting there watching this, and you get a really good pro player saying, don't hit dumb dinks, right? Who wants a dumb dink? So dink like this. So what does that tell you? I shouldn't do that, right? And so why would you ever want to hit a shot that's a dumb dink? Now, I can tell you that I can show you, not just tell you, I can show you footage of the same pro player hitting the exact same shot that he called a dumb dink in the video. In his games, in his matches. And I don't mean like in demonstrations, I mean in medal matches in the pro level. So you have, and I I think I understand what he was trying to say, but that's not what he said. What he said was, this dink is bad, but he does it. So, so it doesn't, right? So you can't, how do you figure that out? Unless you suss through it and you can discern that what he's saying in the video isn't actually accurate given the way that he actually plays and given the state of the game and given how you should play pickleball. So that's what, again, folks who know the game as well as CJ and I do, and the coaches of the Better Pickleball team, can help you with that, right? Whether it's, and I'll talk about the event in the Rift, but whether it's coming to something like that or coaching with us or, watching our stuff, listening to our stuff, it will help you get information that's actually more relevant, more thought through, more curated. And we are definitely very careful with what we say because we understand that there can be misinterpretations and things like that. So again, in terms of your information receipt, use some gatekeeping, right? If it's friends at the courts, ask yourself, why am I listening to a player who may be at my level, even if they're a half level higher and things like that, they're not a pickleball professional, right? Pickleball professional in the sense of being a coach. So why am I listening to them? If the YouTube algorithm is feeding you stuff, why am I paying so much attention to this stuff? It's just YouTube, and YouTube's objective is, and they don't mince words about it. They'll tell you their objective is to get as many clicks and views on their content as they can. They want interactivity with their content. So they're sending you stuff that they know is going to be YouTube successful. Doesn't mean it's going to be you successful. I just thought about that. That was pretty good. So anyway, so just gatekeep your information. And then the other way I want you to think about it, and it's corollary to that, is gatekeeping your journey. Okay, so one thing is information, and you can decide, if you want to watch a video, 10 tips in 5 minutes and stuff like that, fine. It's your time, so you do what you want with it. But the next thing would be, I'm actually going to do some of these things that I'm seeing on this video, or heard from my friend at the court. Now you're really doubling down on the potential harm that the potentially wrong or incomplete or out of context or not right for you information can have. And I'll give you, just a real world example. Names will be withheld to protect the innocent. But a friend of mine working on a shot, and so I asked, why you, where'd that come from, this shot? Because it was kind of out of the blue. And it was a YouTube video. A YouTube video came across, and so started working on that shot. And explored it a little bit with the player about, the thinking about it and things like that. And the only rationale was saw video. And as we explored it, I think the player started to understand that maybe, it's not really that great of a shot because, anyway, there's several reasons. But basically, it's just not a shot that player needed. And there were other areas that were much more valuable for the player to work on. And that's an example of gatekeeping your journey, meaning think about yourself. Think about what's going on with your game, and then try and see if you can figure out the best thing for you to work on, not based on what you heard from an outside source. And this is where a concept called framework can really help you. The reason framework is so powerful as a concept in pickleball is because it allows you to now know the story. So the story of pickleball, yourself, your skills, your background, your strengths and your weaknesses. And so now you're able to go, okay, this is what I need, given the framework of the game, given the objectives I'm trying to accomplish. This is what's going to help me the most play the sport of pickleball. So gatekeeping your journey is as important as gatekeeping your information, perhaps even more important. If you're letting information in, at least gatekeep the journey. And then last concept before we get to the Rift that I want to run down for a minute or so is, don't lose sight of intentionality. Intentionality is this, it's a very broad concept. It has applications at the macro and the micro level. When you think about it, let's go micro first, right? Micro is, I intend to warm up before I play. Okay, what does that mean? It means I know that if I warm up, I'm going to play better, less chance of injury, all the benefits of warming up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to warm up before I play. That's an intentional act by you. right? Intentionality can also go as micro as I'm intending to aim my serve along an intended trajectory that I know, and then I basically then try and execute on that intentionality. So it's that micro, right? The height of my serve is intentional. And then you can think about it very broadly, right? And that could be personally for your body, things like, for instance, I need to work on my strength. So I'm going to start doing some strength training. That's an intentional act, right? Getting up and going to the gym or picking up some weights or doing some body weights at home, body weight exercises and things like that. That's all intentionality. In this context, what it means is being intentional with every part of your pickleball. In this case, we're talking about improvement. We're talking about your journey of as improving as a player. So it's really being super intentional in that part of your pickleball relationship. So when you see a YouTube video come through, take a moment and think about it. Do I want to watch the video? Do I not want to watch the video? Why am I watching the video, right? And then be intentional with your decision to watch the video. Don't just click watch because it's an easy thing to do because YouTube put it in front of you. So that's the concept of intentionality that I want you to focus on there. And then let me share with you, this is the riff piece. So I'm going to flow right into the riff. Let me share with you an event that we have coming up on February 22nd. We're calling it State of Play. It's an absolutely free event. CJ and I felt very strongly about sharing this with as many players as possible. So we decided to make this an open event to the public. And it's we're going to talk about what's going on with pickleball. In terms of some strategies that we're hearing about that players have questions about, big picture things like, the hard game, soft game conversation, talk about paddle developments and how that's going to impact play in 2025 as best we can tell. A couple of rules things that are causing some consternation out there that we're going to try and shine a light on. So it's an open event. There is, however, you need to get a ticket because there's only so many seats and we expect this to get full. So, these rooms that you have only have so much bandwidth, only so much space. So we're going to provide tickets. And then, anyway, so that's that. You need to get a ticket for it. It's on February 22nd. I believe that's a Saturday or Sunday. I can't remember exactly, but it's a weekend. So we wanted to allow for as many players to be off court. From your information, we know that you don't play as much during these times. So we said, okay, let's do it when it's most accessible. And then, anyway, so get your ticket. I'll put a link down in the show notes, so you can just go to betterpickleball.com and there'll be a link on there, I'm sure, on the homepage to get your ticket for this event. And join CJ and me for about 45 minutes to an hour on the State of Play. We'll answer some questions if we have time for that. And anyway, that's the event. And I hope that you guys can join us so that you can get accurate information from pickleball professionals because this is what we do. Try and share with you the right information to help you then make decisions that are right for your game. All right, that's this week's podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're enjoying this series of podcasts that we started 2025 with. If you're enjoying the podcast, consider rating and reviewing it. As always, it just helps us reach other players. We like hearing from you and we enjoy the feedback, but the number one reason we ask for this is so that we can reach other players who may benefit from the podcast. And as always, if you enjoyed the podcast, share it with your friends. Particularly in this case, if you have a friend who's kind of out there on the YouTube hamster wheel or just listens to every little thing that, every player at the court shares with them, then share this podcast with them to help them maybe get off that hamster wheel. And then I hope to see at least some of you during our State of Play on February 22nd. Have a great week, and I'll see you in the next episode of Pickleball Therapy. Be well.